It is a literal psychological disorder. I don't care what anybody tells me. It is a psychological disorder. We have the American Psychiatric Association saying it's a disorder.
You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. This is the meaning, in the phrase of Barry Goldwater, peace through strength. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. And he said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Welcome back to Common Sense. Hope you guys are having a great 90,031st day of our republic. Now, before I get into the topic of this video, make sure you are subscribed to Common Sense. Turn on those post notifications so you see every video I upload, and make sure you smack that like button. Now, what do we have to talk about today? The CDC is promoting the sexualization of children. Now, if you guys have seen the past few videos on my channel, you have seen the constant theme of this gender ideology that is just continuing to get more and more extreme, okay? It's almost in every single part of our lives at this point. It's in our entertainment industry. It's in our music. It's being pushed on children and adults together. But in this video, I'm going to talk about something that I saw on Twitter from the Libs of TikTok Twitter account. Like I said many times, one of the best accounts in the world. But the Libs of TikTok tweeted out today, the CDC is urging teachers to change their terminology by avoiding gendered language and using pronouns for their students. Okay, and there's going to be three things that I talk about regarding this news. I'm going to talk about the ongoing push for sexual confusion. I'm going to talk about the textbook definition of gender dysphoria, because I think it's relevant from the Centers of Disease Control. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the dangers that we face by promoting this to children. Okay, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and read what the CDC put out here. And this is straight from the CDC website, cdc.gov. And they say 1.2, I think this is a part of a presentation to teachers and how they should speak with their children and what they should say to them. And it says, using terminology and language, assessment areas. This is a self-reflection assessment as a teacher. Am I doing a good job? And these are the questions. I use neutral terms, partner instead of boyfriend or girlfriend, to describe students' romantic relationships instead of making assumptions. Okay, and you can either put A, I do this frequently, B, I do this occasionally, or C, I do this rarely or never. The second thing, I use inclusive terminology, using individuals' chosen names, pronouns, not assuming genders of individuals' friends, family members, or romantic partners in conversations with students, peers, and community members. And the last one is I use students' chosen names in all school environments, including abbreviations and pronouns, Jim versus James, Natalie versus Nathan. Okay, so the first thing, I use neutral terms to describe romantic relationships instead of making assumptions. Why do we need to confuse these children even more? Okay, the first point of this video is the ongoing push for the sexualization of children and the confusion of children, because this is the fact. This is the fact. Before kids hit puberty, before they go into the high school years, in my opinion, you just do not even begin to understand how sexuality works. You just do not, okay? When we tell kids that relationships are not between boys and girls, or even, shoot, for that matter, boys and boys. I mean, I'm not saying that we should push that most of the time. That's kind of your guys' opinion. If you think, we should even talk about gay relationships in school, I don't know, but at least, the idea that we cannot refer to relationships with just boys and girls, whether it's a boy and a girl or a boy and a boy or whatever the case is, we cannot assume that their genders are going to be either boy or girl because there's a million genders. Do you guys see the danger in this? The ongoing push for the sexualization of children. Do you guys see the danger in doing that? It's just so confusing to kids. Okay, it's so confusing. I cannot imagine being a kid in school. And thank God that I had, an upbringing that showed me the truths, the basic truths of our universe, the binary reality of our genders and sex. But without that proper upbringing, essentially, a lot of the times, if kids in school are not, given a proper upbringing, the teachers kind of become their parents in a lot of ways, because they're at school every day, throughout the week, spending 8 hours a day with these people, and these teachers are kind of role models, and they can almost become their parents in a lot of ways. So that is the danger of confusing them with this. And the second one here, using chosen names and pronouns, not assuming genders of individuals' friends etc. And the last one, using abbreviations and pronouns and students' chosen names. Do you know how many people in my school? I cannot imagine. I went to high school from 2014 to 2017. I cannot imagine the amount of students that would use this rule as a way to just make jokes and just, make a mockery of this whole thing, like choosing stupid names, nicknames. I've even seen people who think that we should allow kids to think that they are animals. Like I said in my last video, I'm probably going to make a whole nother video on this, but the students that think that they can be cats and they have litter boxes in the classrooms, can you guys see the danger of this? When we are affirming these nicknames, not all nicknames. For example, my name is Joseph. I went by Joe a lot of the time in school. That's no problem. That's shortening of a name. But choosing a completely different name that could possibly even be an animal in some cases, do you guys not see the danger in doing that? I don't know. That's just me personally. That's my opinion. But moving on to the second point. What is the textbook definition of gender dysphoria? Because if the Centers of Disease Control is making these guidelines, shouldn't we know what the definition of gender dysphoria is and figure out whether they are literally promoting a psychological disorder? Because right here, from the American Psychiatric Association, what is gender dysphoria? We can see the definition right here. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders provides for one overarching diagnosis of gender dysphoria with specific separate criteria for children and for adolescents and adults. The DSM-5 defines gender dysphoria as a marked incongruence between one's expressed gender and their assigned gender lasting at least 6 months, as manifested by at least two of the following: a marked incongruence between one's experienced/expressed gender and primary or secondary sex characteristics, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary or secondary sex characteristics, a strong desire for the primary or secondary sex characteristics of the other gender, a strong desire to be of the other gender, a strong desire to be treated as the other gender. These are literally all in this whole umbrella of transgenderism, of pronouns, of confusion. It is a literal psychological disorder. I don't care what anybody tells me. It is a psychological disorder. We have the American Psychiatric Association saying it's a disorder. And now we have the Centers of Disease Control, as if we needed to discredit them more after the whole COVID thing. I mean, don't even get me started on the whole COVID situation with the CDC. But as if we needed to discredit the CDC more, we now have the CDC releasing guidelines that support the promotion of a gender dysphoria psychological disorder. Okay? Do I need to say how bad that is? Is that just common sense or what? Let me know right now what you guys think down below. How ridiculous is that? Because to me, that is insane. The third and final point I want to make in this video is the dangers of promoting this ideology with children. And I kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to further explain some of the dangers that I see with this type of language. It all goes back to the development of our minds. I can only imagine if I had children and I sent them to school and their teachers and their school districts and the guidelines and the rules, and this is the problem, it's the rules that are being set to tilt toward a certain ideology. The rules themselves. If we start obeying these guidelines, it's not even like the teachers are going to have a say. It's that the rules themselves are going to support this narrative. And when the rules support the narrative and you break the rules as a teacher, that's a whole different conversation as opposed to just a single teacher, trying to push their ideas on the children or, groups of teachers. We are getting into very dangerous territory when we start making rules that support a certain ideology that is at least not agreed on by most people, and at the worst, sinister in its nature. So another example, like I said, is the lack of development of these children. They can't even understand for themselves what these things mean. Okay, when I was 6 years old, when I was 7 years old, when you start getting crushes on girls in school and all these types of things, you don't understand really what it is, and if my teacher told me from the jump, like, oh, we're not going to call this your girlfriend, you wouldn't even know what that means. Like, you're like, oh, I have this type of feeling for this girl. I think she's kind of pretty or whatever, but you just do not understand what it even means. I think this is very dangerous territory. You guys can let me know what you think down below. I feel like every single day I'm seeing this news of somehow, and I don't know how it's progressing at this rate. All right, I'm even surprised by this. We live in a world with social media where news stories travel much quicker than they used to travel. But even in that environment, I am still surprised at the amount of progression in this realm. It's just very surprising. It's crazy to me. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think this is a terrible thing to do? What do you think about the CDC? Do you trust the CDC? Do you think this gender dysphoria situation is a legitimate disorder. Let me know what you think down below right now in the comment section. If you made it this far in the video, make sure you like the video. Subscribe here to Common Sense for more political and news commentary from an unbiased, common sense perspective. And with that being said, I will see everybody next video. Peace out.